Making Ranger cups for FCF. All right, welcome to Ranger Kit cup making. I've done these on the scroll saw, made a paper template and stuck them to the wood and had the boys cut them out on a scroll saw. And that was pretty labor intensive, kind of made me a little bit nervous, but I thought with the time constraints, it'd be nice if I could cut these out and leave them in the plank of wood, but just cut out where they do a little bit of cutting to get them out of there. And so I've got enough here for 4 cups. They pretty much cost now, as of April 13th of 2022, they're about $5 a cup when it comes down to the expense of a board. This was some of that ready to paint board. They're glued up pieces. Not a bad board, don't get me wrong. It's just a pine board. That's the cheapest I could get. Poplar was $10 per cup and oak was $15 per cup, and just enough to make a cup, a small cup. And well, so it's like it's like a drink stein or whatever like that. So anyway, it's been a few years since we did this, probably 5 to 6 to 7 years or better. So I thought we would do this as an offering on the price. This is a Shark CNC, and I've had this for about 2.5 years now. Enjoy it. This is kind of the setup that I use for it. I basically have a big foam box that just slips over the top of it, and it's like a big ice chest that just foam like cooler kind of a deal. And it's easily lifts up, and I've got a little prop stick on either side if I need to get from the front end to the back end. And here's my tools. I've kind of migrated a little bit. As always, whenever you're working with stuff, you have a tendency to find something that works a little bit better for you. So I'm using a pin nail, 23 gauge pin nail, to hold my middle parts down. Tabs are fine. You can sand them off, and but on round objects, not quite as easy as square objects. So I'm using the pin nailer to secure the inner pieces, small parts, and it just leaves a straight pin hole in it, which is small, and the bit doesn't seem to be affected by it. I've got this 1/8 inch bit that I've been using with it, and it's probably hit, I don't know, 30-40 nails, and it's still cutting fine. It's just a carbide straight bit, but generally if I'd hit a screw, it breaks them. Brass, it'll go through it, but I don't like even hitting the brass. But anyway, so that's what I'm up to. I'm getting ready to load this up on the Shark console and get it to cutting out. So let me pick you up there. I've got a Z-axis my X and Y up to this point and get it homed in, and my height on my board, I need to get it leveled in, and we'll see it take you from there. In the pocket for the ring that's on the very bottom of the cup. It's the first one, and I've got about an 1/8 inch of my bed needs to be readjusted. I need to screw it down and get it re-leveled, but it's probably 1/8 of an inch out of level with the sides from the front to the back, with the back being the highest. So this is really the only one that makes any difference. The rest of them just need to be cut out. So this one's supposed to cut out in a pocket that's about 3/8 of an inch deep. And once it does that, it'll go to stop, and then we'll run the outer ring. All right, we're finishing up the 5th pass. Those are going down, and hopefully it's going to stop here. And good what it's doing, good. Alright, it's going to cut out the handles now. This is a new cut for me. See how it does. that in 3 cuts. First cut's when you find stuff go flying. Okay, I'm putting a tab in it, that's good. Back there, cutting the other handle out back there. Well, that one in the back did pretty good until the last 3 inches, and then it came a little unfurled, and it cut through the edge on that side and edge on this side, and then it went flying. So I don't know if I'll be able to salvage it or not. We'll find out. All right, we're going to go cut the inner rings now. This is when you might want to put a pin nail in there. I thought about running the laser on it just to real quickly go down through there and cut and show where all the parts are, so I could throw a couple of pins in where they go, which may not be a bad idea, but right now we'll see. Just depends on those cup rings. That one was pretty painless. It basically just cut the inside out. Every now and then the router, if they're smaller parts, the router will blow the part up, and then it'll get caught in between the bit and something else, and then you can throw your axis off. Right now, so far so good. We'll see. All right, I pulled these plugs out. I'll get them too. And I got one back there in the back. I don't really know what those guys do that have their machines back in here where you can't get to it. For me, all it really is just a matter of dropping this side thing down, coming around the back side, lifting this up, and then I have full access to it. As you can see right here, this is where I've made a mistake. I should have anchored that very corner. The next one I will anchor it, and I'll put another block in that corner to make it. And then I can just basically set the end down in there, and these are the plugs that have come out of it. And let's run the last one, which is the pockets. I'm going to go ahead and well, we'll just see how she runs. So we'll come over here, tell it to stop that. Go over here and cut the inner ring, cut the outside. And this is going to basically cut all the outsides. Hit, and it's the first time I've cut this file, so we'll find out how she does. These have tabs on them. The inner parts, I don't really worry about them too much. I don't really want to have to sand the inside for a tab, but it might not be a bad idea for me to laser burn a spot on it just to put a tack in it just to keep it from moving around. And I have them where they overlap a little bit, just as long as they're not cutting into it. Gotta be careful when you go around the outside, the edge of it there, and you cut outside the form. That's kind of a new thing there. I'm gonna have to fix that. Well, sniff, sniff. Sometimes everything just don't quite go out the way you think they should. Here's some parts. Here's some parts. There's some parts going around on me. And there's some parts of some parts. I've got about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 out of the 1, 2, 3 parts that are in good shape. But you know, hey, the next board will get her figured out. All right, well, after looking at the damages, it's time to take the file into the computer and adjust it just a little bit. And then we'll fine tune this and fix the parts we can. Some of them probably won't mess with. Other parts we'll cut out and use it. And then I'll put some supplement parts in the corners to make up for that. But right now, we'll pull this out of the old USB port. And I use this little 3-foot cable so that I don't wear that port out, because I do have to go back and forth on these first 2 or 3 cuts on these kits, sometimes more than that. And I'll bring that USB drive in, but I keep the file that I work on there as well as all the tap files. So it makes it easy. And then once I get it where I'm getting real close, then I'll start saving my file to the desktop. So I'll have a copy on here and a copy on that. And then anything that I cut, I put in a previously cut folder. So I've got about 3 ways of backing it up. So there you go. Okay, second board. So far so good. I put screws in each one of the 4 corners of the board, re-drilled them down, and then set them in. That anchored that last corner out, so that's good. Then I scooted the rings up here that were all bonded together. Scooted them together. I'm just kind of watching the inner rings, make sure they don't make an issue coming out. Sometimes if they pop up, they'll jump out like that, and that'll be a little bit of a problem, but not too much. Just generally we'll push it out of the way. There you go. And move around here and cutting out the inner rings. So far it's doing just fine. That's a compression bit that's on there. It's designed to cut to a down cut at the very bottom, and then the other part, the other one is a up cut, so it brings the tip to the top, but the cutter does a good job of keeping the top edge fairly clean. Okay, that worked out pretty good. I'm going to go ahead and pull these round pucks out of here and get them out of the way so they're not posing a problem. Get them all out of there. And then we'll run the outer ring cut, see what they're doing. I'm sitting there looking at this. This was on this is where you first did the down cut, and this first cut on this wasn't on the compression down cut. It wasn't very low, so you can see the difference of a down cut bit when it's not lower down for the first cut just right. This is a little higher. That end down there is about 1/8 inch higher than it is right here, so that's just some of the play that you got to deal with on your board sometimes. So I like to say it's a machinist board, but it's not. It's just a CNC wood board. All right, now we're cutting out the rings. You see if that little adjustment of moving them other 3 rings up just a little bit made a difference. These have tabs on them, so they should stay in place. And with the screws being in there, they're kind of holding them in place, so I'm hoping that this works out good. We'll come back to this here in just a little bit. All right, that one was a success. That's a go. I just need to put the 4 screws in a corner, and now they're all cutting out good. And we'll see about that time-wise. I think we're about I'll get the time cut on the next one. All right, after a little bit of cleanup on my vector file, I was able to bump them up, get them to where they all cut out now. That's the second one. Didn't require a whole lot of changing. All I had to do was put the screws in the corners, and it was pretty good. I need to make another handle and 2 rounds out of some scrap, and I have one more to run through there. We'll try this out and see how this works for the guys. And there's Miss Kiwi. She's been over there helping me out today, and she likes to go fetching after stuff pretty quickly, but she's a good little girl, aren't you? Yeah, she's a good girl. She's a smart cookie. Anyway, so there's the machine for access from the back side, you know, with the stick on the corner there that holds it up. And let's. All right, total time for making one of these is 16 minutes. Cost is around $5. That's in just material. That's not my time or any electricity or any tools or anything, but that's the cost. There's a breakdown on this puck right here of the machining process. Basically comes out to 16 minutes. So there's 4 processes, and so there it is. And I've got another one over there to cut out, and stepping back from the machine, there we go. That's with the front cover up or down. And all right, so I can make a cup kit in about 20 minutes. Time I bagged it, routed it, and got it ready to go. Using a flush cut router, CNC machine, and a little bit of the bandsaw to get these in cleaned up shape. They come out pretty clean. They'll stack right on top of each other. Basically, you put them on top of each other, they're identical. I mean, they're just that neat. Then you stack 6, 7 of them up, and this will give you a handle that will look like that when they're glued together. And I'm giving out 2 handles. So I saw a sign the other day that had 2 handles out there next to each other, and well, one that had 3 of them actually. So if a person wanted to, they could put one on both sides and customize it that way. So anyway, that's kind of what I'm thinking. But anyway, so that's a kit. These are out of pine. They're the $5 kit. If you want them out of oak, they're $15, and that is just the cost of the material. So that's pretty much what I can buy it for at Lowe's. I don't have a source for pine, which is the least expensive. I'll probably make some out of some cedar here in a little while and get them kits going, and maybe a few out of some walnut and some oak and maple maybe. So that's what we're doing. Okay, back at making some more cups. These are the pine. Now I'm going to produce some walnut and some cedar cup lengths. And basically I just these were coming out of that, these came out of that stack down there. This is all lumber that I've air dried, and I cut it a couple years ago or so. And that's all 3/4. This is about 5/8, so I'm going to still use it, and we'll get it cut out. I might try and hunt a little bit of oak to do it as well. Alright, this planer does a great job. cleaning up this walnut oak with resurfacing. I had a little lunchbox sand planer, and it was putting a pretty good snipe on the board, so this one does a good job. And my other one I took a hard piece of the hard paper board and put it across there. It was like a 3/4 inch piece, and then I put a little block right here on each side so that I'd raise this all the way up and then slip it in there, and it would sit on both sides, and it'd bring my fence out about a foot past that, and that really fixed any snipe that I would ever need. This runs into this, and I probably ought to be getting close to filling it up. Some of these guys make little 5-gallon buckets for these things, and they just have no idea. But you know, this thing here, generally I can plane for an hour or two and it'll fill it up. So a little 5 bucket, if you were to plane all this lumber right here, the walnut and the cedar and that piece of oak, from boards like right here. This is one of the thicker ones, but I was going to resaw it down, but I decided I wouldn't have enough left to make any difference. So they're about 1-inch boards, and by the time you take it and you plane on both sides, you come down with a nice 3/4 inch board. So kind of learned that from resawing. You don't want it to be under 1 inch when you're resawing lumber. And the mess, pretty contained. This doesn't require a shop vac. It just simple drop it in, and that it is starting to fill up my bucket, my little bag. I did have some little cloth filters in there that kept that from happening, but it's kind of a messy job. So I have a dust deputy I may mount on it. Just got one over there that I could use on it and put it in there, and I may do that. But anyway, that's all my dog's toys. And everything's on wheels. Just about everything in the shop is on wheels as you look around. CNC's on wheels. All the tables are on wheels. Storage carts are on wheels. About the only thing that's not on wheels is that shop vac silencer box. And that little desk thing over there, those two things don't move. But about everything else that's on the floor is on wheels. Got a little bit of lumber over in the corner that doesn't stay there very long. And I'm going to put park the planer back in its spot so everything gets rolled out. Shoot back out. This is a 22 by 18 garage, and if I put anything else in here, I won't be able to move around. But anyway, that's where that's at, and we'll park the planer now. All right. There's always a little cleanup on the shop. And I've got a shop vac over there on a hose. It's a fast cap 25-foot hose, and I have a remote on a little key fob lantern, and it's held on there with masking tape. So if I jerk this good and hard, it's going to break. So if I want to turn on that over there, I just push the button, and it just hangs around my neck. Because I mean, I use it like 50 times a day when I'm out here turning stuff off, and so I'll go around and vacuum things up a little bit before I put them away, and then also vacuum the spot that's back in there sometimes, clean that up. A lot of sawdust collects in these little corners and stuff, so everything being on wheels, it makes it nice for that. And I'll roll that back in and park it. A lot of what people don't see on these shops is the cleanup, and this is a 2.25, 2.5 inch floor sweep, and it's got about the same size of hose that goes over there to the fast cap reel, and that will go out to the driveway, and it'll reach my car when it's in the driveway. So that's a pool hose, does a real good job. Right here's where I burned it on one of my heaters, and had it up against that when it was on the ground, and hence I moved it up in the air, and also installed one over there as far as electric. So that, but a lot of cleanup in between jobs. I'll generally do a machine, and then I'll clean up and then go back to it. And there's a little dust deputy over there in the corner, and it pulls it down through there. And this is a soundproofing box. The vent is on the back side, and I have to clean that about once a year. And other than that, I'll clean that bucket about once a week or once every 4 or 5 days, depending how much CNCing I'm done and or cleaning up. But I've already dumped that yesterday, so making these cups and things. So now we'll get on to milling this down to the size that fits in the jig, which is 22 by 7 inches, and then we'll put it over here in the CNC machine. All right, after you get your lumber, your length roughly cut, it's about 1 inch longer than what it needs to be or so. And then, you know, I straight lined it and get it pretty well, the length, the width I need. And then after I get done cutting it, about 1 inch longer, I'll come down here and cut it to length now that I've got all 4 sides squared. And I've got like one side that's not plain, but it doesn't really matter as long as it's parallel. And now I've got some oak to add to the mix. This oak came out of the barn on Powwow. The cedar came out of the big old logs that came off the Powwow property. I just repurposed them. They were just sitting there rotting. And then this walnut, I'm not sure if this came from someone's backyard or where that came from, but I get it and resaw it and have some fun with it. So now I'm going to cut it to length, put it in a crosscut saw and cut it to length, and then be ready to go in the jig. As with any setup, I've got a clamp down there, and I'm just kind of nubbing in right to the edge of the clamp. It's a little rubber stop, some little sawdust built in there. I've squared this one edge on this side. Coming back over here, I'm going to cut this off, and then when I cut it, I'm going to check it, make sure that it fits in my jig that's in my CNC machine. All right, not too much of a mess. Next thing I'll do is I'll vacuum this up, clean this up, and then push. I do need to rip one of the boards down. And there's my cedar boards that have come out. This is the oak board that I need to rip down to the right length. And then we'll be ready for the CNC. All right, watching YouTube videos, you see some of the guys that are cutting these boards, ripping them, and their blades sitting right out there, and they're bringing their hands around there. Fortunately, I still have all my digits after 40 some years of doing that. I respect that blade, that I'm going to be a fool, and every now and then I'm going to do something stupid. So I want to keep that blade access, especially on a table saw, down to a little bit of nothing. And so, you guys on YouTube, hey, check your throat, clearances. Bandsaw's pretty safe. I don't get too excited about it being 2 inches above the material there. Most of the time I see someone making a mistake because they're getting it too tight. Same can be said for this. If you get it too low and you have to come back and correct it, then that's as unsafe an act as leaving it too high. So just check your blade height, make sure that it's right. I will say that that little crosscut sled that I saw on YouTube a couple years ago, 2.5 years ago, 3 years now, and I have loved that thing. I've got along all these years without one, but that thing makes it safe, and it makes it extremely accurate. And you always know where your cut's going to be, and you can just lay your board right there on that thing. And I made these stops to fit on either one of these fences, and so that right there is this complete crosscut. I hardly ever use that miter saw anymore. If it's a long board, sure, I'll wheel it out and lay it on the ground and cut one up, but most of my boards are 4 foot or under, so this tool right here makes that table saw even more valuable. And so there it is. Let me get that ripped and we'll be on to the show. Also, talking about safety, there's my hose coming right out from the very back on the table saw end feed side, and I'm just used to it there. I know that it's there, and so I'm working with it, and I'm not having problems stepping over. If you're a trip hazard guy, the cord's on the floor and the vacuum hoses probably may not be what you need, but it just keeps me agile, and I just don't hardly slip on. I did have this pointed off to the side, and then I found myself conking my head right here and bending over a whole bunch more times trying to get that connected up off the side. So I thought, that's foolish. Let me just bring it around here, and I know where it's at, and it's important to make it towards user-friendly to you So you're not really sticking your head in a spot that you don't need to be sticking it in to get there. So that was free. Didn't charge a thing for it. All right, a quick change. Put the vacuum hose back over there on the CNC machine. Wheel the saw back into the corner over there. By the way, those wheel, I think they're by Grizzly, and those wheel table saw stand wheel make your tool portable. Fantastic device. Those things make it so slick. These work okay, but they're not near as good as that. In fact, I got one to sell you because that was just not big enough for the table saw. And then the DeWalt tables, 4 of them, and they work all right for the lighter duty, but they're not as easy to push around as the Shopbox portable jig table. And then of course the Shopbox table with these casters are like the Casio, the brakes on them. They hold this thing, it doesn't move anywhere unless I release the brake. And those things are sweet. So let me go ahead and clean up this little bit of mess from the joiner, and we'll get through the CNC. All right, part of the jig setup is getting the boards to go into the jig. So pre-drilling a small hole in the corners, and then drilling them with the bigger bit, and all that just makes it easier to get in and out. It keeps the wood from splitting, and these holes are bigger than the screws so that they don't split the wood out. And that's part of it. Probably another 4 minutes to that 16 minutes goes to jig prep and ripping the board down, cutting it in half. Once you've got one end drilled, you turn all 9 boards around and you do the other side on this side. With woodworking, you just got to make 6 or more items to even break even on them. Just the mechanics of it, handling and setting up and getting your drills. So if you make 6 or more, you'll generally make a little headway on it. Well, trying to make some cups out of some cedar. As you well know, a cedar board is at best riddled with splits and cracks and whatever, and it's really hard for me to get a section of cups out of those boards. I mean, they just almost have to be grade A. Pine, oak, they all come out pretty good. I do get a couple that are busted, but not very often. The cedar, even though it's beautiful as can be, is faced with so many challenges. Well, this 23 gauge pin nailer that I use on my CNC to hold down is also one fantastic gluing aid. When it can put a pin nail in these spots right here without splitting this wood and hold it together for a tack, because I was trying to put clamps on it and I was just beating myself against the wall. I thought, well, let me see if them things will stay in there. Well, them pin nailers, they do. There's pin in there and pin in there. There's 2 pins, 4 pins in this one. And, I'm just holding the joint together and re-gluing them down. Now, these sandwich on top of each other. So, like a piece of plywood, they'll draw strength from what's underneath them. So, if you got a loose joint that's been glued, like this one right here, then you put that over a piece of solid wood, and, it'll sandwich. It'll be sandwiched in between the tops and the bottom. But very few of these did I get. Well, I think out of all of these rings, I only got 1 ring that was solid. Right there it is. It didn't have a single crack. The rest of them have been glued and put together with glue in it. So this one here had, it was solid. But so 2 rings out of 14. So, it's a challenge to try and get something to work. The cups are light duty. Probably what I'll end up doing is taking some of these and mixing them in with some cedar and some pine and some walnut, and we'll get some different fixtures on it. These cups, if you get a can of soup, cream of soup, and use 6 rings. Now I'm giving you the 7th ring, so if you want to go with a taller mug, you don't want the can liner, you can do it that way, or you can use a can liner and just put a plug in the bottom of it. But that's kind of what we're shooting at. It's almost 12-ounce can, cream of soup, and it fits down in, and it will make a dandy little drinking device for that. So anyway, that's kind of what we're doing. I'm just making a batch of them and figuring out what works.